Arrowhead Pride draft room. And, barring something insane, this is likely going to be the last time we speak to you guys tonight, as the Kansas City Chiefs have once again traded up. We saw them trade up in the second round and take SMU wide receiver Rashee Rice. Now they trade up again towards the back end of the third round. I believe it was with the Cincinnati Bengals. We're still waiting to get the details on the trade. They were slotted to pick it at number 95. So if they trade with the Bengals, they move up to 92. And that was immediately after the Buffalo Bills just selected linebacker Dorian Williams. So interesting to see where the Kansas City Chiefs go here. We're joined by Rocky Magana, Caleb James, Ron Kopp Jr., of course, with me as they have been all weekend long. So what are we feeling right here, fellas? Like, who is that guy who's on the board here? You're like, this is the guy. This is the moment that we've been waiting for all night, the third round.
Well, let me say, because I do think the fact that they jumped ahead of the Bengals tells me that they could be looking at a position that the Bengals could be looking at, which is the offensive tackle position. Dawan Jones, the Ohio State offensive tackle, still on the board. Some medical things could be pushing him down, but I really feel like that makes a lot of sense. I feel like the Bills could have picked him too, which was a little surprising why they made the trade, but they must feel good about Spencer Brown potentially, but I think it's going to be Dawan Jones. I think it makes a lot of sense for them to get a day one starter here.
You've got tackles on the board. You've got an intriguing receiver prospect in Tyler Scott, and we mentioned it right after they made the Rashee Rice pick. They could possibly go back to it. They certainly have a lot of options here, but it's someone that they just couldn't live without for them to want to make a trade with. To make this trade. Especially when they were coming up, they were only a few selections away.
An interesting thing is, I don't know if PFF Draft Tracker just hasn't updated yet, but they still have the Chiefs on the clock at 95.
Well, they're about to make a selection.
Well, yeah,
Goodell
I mean,
step up to the podium.
They're wrong, Rocky.
No. They have them on the clock at 92 and at 95.
Oh, huh. So we have two third-round picks.
The
What?
NFL Network Tracker does not say that. So
Yeah, we need the
No,
details.
they just updated it. Okay.
Yeah. So we got the details. KC to move up to 92, they give Cincinnati 95 and number 217. I'm assuming that's a 7th round pick. So
yep, it is.
So move up a couple of spots to hopefully get somebody that they obviously wanted to attack and move up aggressively to go grab and give up a late round pick for it. So let's see what the selection is here for the Kansas City Chiefs.
It could be Jalen Duncan as well. He's another offensive tackle option around this range.
Yeah, no, I think Duncan does make sense as a developmental option. He has the footwork, he has the pass kind of setting ability that the Chiefs would covet maybe. I just think the Dawan Jones pick, when you get a guy that you feel like you can plug in right away at right tackle and complete your offensive line rather than waiting on a guy like Duncan to maybe develop, add to his anchor and get ready for the NFL. I just feel like Jones makes so much sense here, but we're about to find out.
It's crazy they traded with Cincinnati to get in front of the Steelers.
It's crazy that Cincinnati would trade with us, to be honest.
I think in this situation, when it's mid rounds, like when you're in the third round, like,
oh wow,
then you kind of throw that to the side. Okay.
Wanya Morris.
So tackle Wanya Morris from Oklahoma. So what do the Arrowhead Pride listeners need to know about this tackle? Because I know Oklahoma tackle Anton Harrison was a guy that tons of people were mocking the Kansas City Chiefs at the end of the first round. So what do they need to know about Wanya Morris?
Well, what I would tell you is, he played right tackle at the University of Oklahoma opposite Anton Harrison. He's a true senior, so he's played there an extra year than he needed to. Has the frame of a Chiefs offensive tackle, right? He has some long arms. He has some movement ability, the footwork to kind of get back in his pass sets. The thing is, he is going to be a little sloppy maybe with his fundamentals, his techniques. He's going to maybe be a little off balance at times. But he has good footwork. He has good athleticism for the offensive tackle position. Again, he has the frame, long arms. I think he could do some more mass to him. I think he might be a little light, in some extents. But I'm surprised to see them go with him over Dawan Jones. But he is a right tackle. He is someone that should be able to compete for the right tackle position right away.
Man, that is interesting. Just with them taking Morris there, because there's guys on the board who I thought would give them better options. And now let me tell you, he does have some ridiculously long arms. He fits a lot of the boxes. Is he going to come in and be a day one starter at right tackle? I don't know. I don't think so. I think that, he's going to have to compete with Lucas Niang, to be able to see what goes in there. Now, they are going to probably like the fact that he is a bigger, he is a more mobile tackle. He's got a lot of work to do with his hands and hand placements, though. I know just off the bat, they showed what they thought was a highlight on the screen, but he's got the defender completely in his chest. He's got to work on some of that upper body strength, but it's a good canvas to work with. I'm a little bit surprised, though, because there's guys like Salvaderi on the board. There were guys like Dawan Jones on the board. I had those guys ranked higher than him. I had Wanya Morris as like a 4th or 5th round pick. I thought he was clearly a day 3 selection in the analysis I did. So I'm a little bit shocked at that one. I'm a little bit shocked that they traded up for it. But, there is that Oklahoma offensive line connection. He's going to be familiar with Creed Humphrey. He's going to be familiar with all of those guys. So, he may not be the guy to start this year. This may be more about thinking about tomorrow than today. He's going to need some development and seasoning. But like you say, he has the tools, and he has, he's also a high IQ football player. I think that should be included in there also. He really does a good job at, picking up his reads when he sees them.
And with this selection, and we talked about it last night when, the tackles just didn't fall to the Chiefs in round 1, even when they were kind of looking to move up. They kind of missed that window because so many tackles went so early in the first round of the draft. And we talked about it Jawan Taylor, who, was predominantly a right tackle in Jacksonville, but signed to the Kansas City Chiefs, as we assume, to be their left tackle, but could possibly go both ways. We talked about it last night. This absolutely locks Jawan Taylor into that left tackle spot. And now the Kansas City Chiefs we're going to have an interesting camp battle at right tackle now.
Well, yeah, we will. And so, like you said, Wanya Morris isn't a day 1 starter, but he did split his time pretty much evenly between left tackle and right tackle as time in Oklahoma. He lost the left tackle job to Anton Harrison this last year, but in 2020, he played specifically left tackle for Oklahoma. So he has, and then in 2021, he kind of split evenly his time. So he is that kind of swing tackle guy that the Chiefs kind of have been looking for.
They've got, right now we talked about Lucas Niang, Brett Veach, I mentioned earlier, was really complimentary of Darian Kennard and kind of how he's developed this offseason, and it seems like the Chiefs are kind of expecting him to be a player who could step in this season after being a healthy and active his entire rookie season. And then Prince Tega Winogo is another guy that the coaching staff seems to just love him as a player. They continue to keep him around as a guy for depth on that team, so he could be a guy who could be competing for that too. That's 4 guys that could be competing possibly for that right tackle spot. And I don't think that Prince Tega Winogo necessarily is going to be, but they got a lot of bodies along the offensive line, and we know the other 4 positions are definitely set. So that's going to be one of the more interesting storylines for the Chiefs in training camp this season.
Well, yeah. And also, I think if you have these guys who are kind of raw or have some development that need to happen, like a Wanya Morris, what better team to have them land on than Andy Heck is widely regarded as the best offensive line coach on the planet. And then you have a former offensive lineman in Andy Reid. I trust their ability to see what's wrong with the guy and develop him. And Wanya Morris, I will say this for him, while he does let guys into his chest too much, while he does struggle with strength a little bit, when he does something right, he does it really well. And he's not a guy who can only run block and not pass set as well. He can do both, decently well, just inconsistently. So he's not a one-trick pony. You'll see a lot of these college tackles come out where they'll be great pass blockers, but they can't run block, right? Wanya Morris is kind of good at everything. You know what I mean? So he's a pretty well-rounded guy. He's got a great frame. I think that you get him with Andy Heck, give him a red shirt season, or let him compete for the job and see if he surprises you. But I think developmentally, he's a good guy to have in-house.
And so I want to get your guys' final opinions. And, barring the Chiefs making another serious move and jumping back up in here to the very end of the 3rd round, it seems like we're probably done with day 2 of the NFL draft. They still got plenty of picks, even after giving up 2 late round picks today in these move ups. Still got plenty of picks on day 3, so still plenty of ammunition to try to move around and get some of these late round picks that Veach has been so good at the last couple of years. But they filled everything that we wanted them to fill so far through the first 2 days of the draft. Now, I think we're feeling really good about Felix last night, taking him number 31 overall. And, Nolan Smith would have been great there too, but he gets sniped by the Philadelphia Eagles. So we come away with Felix. We're feeling really good about the hometown kid from K-State. And then they get their wide receiver and they get their tackle. And so it's not necessarily the way I think we would have scripted it. But I think that I'm fine with the way that things worked out. Like, they did fill every position of need that we've been talking about for months and months leading up to this NFL draft.
So,
Yeah, and it's not the name you wanted to see, but none of them are names where you're like outraged over. Like, I'm not outraged that they took Wanya Morris.
Yeah, and like Caleb, like how are you feeling right now? Because it might not be necessarily the names that you were hoping for. But I mean, if we're going to buy into the Chiefs right now, if we're going to buy into Veach's drafting development and him identifying the players that they want to bring in and players that they can turn into assets for themselves, like, how are we feeling about these 3 players after 2 days of the NFL draft?
Well, they filled their 3 biggest needs. They went edge, receiver, and tackle, and they probably filled them in about the order of importance that they went in. I think everyone was cool with the FAU pick. Rashee Rice, we'll see about him. Definitely the athletic ability. The thing I do like about Wanya Morris, though, that they're bringing in, that is he did spend a little bit of time at Tennessee playing next to Trey Smith for a little while at one point in his career. So that'd be something interesting just to kind of keep an eye on those familiar connections that guys have to one another. But he's, like you say, they're going to make him earn everything. He's at number 95. Or not number 95. They traded up to 92 to get him. And I do like the fact that they are going to have an open competition, and it is going to be a clear competition. I know they keep throwing Darian Kennard's name in there. I don't really see him as a tackle option, especially not now. I think it's going to be between Lucas Niang to actually step up and earn the position and prove he can. But because they know his health concerns and issues, they're going to have Wanya Morris waiting in the tank and kind of ready to go. It's an interesting pick, but again, Andy Reid and Coach Heck, they will value arm length over absolutely everything and anything that they possibly can.
So as we're wrapping things up, and I want to get your final thoughts on this too, Rocky, but Ron, like, how are we feeling? 2 days of the NFL draft. Chiefs still have plenty of ammunition heading into day 3 to try to make some moves and find some late round draft gems. Like, is this like we fill all the positions of need? Like, are you still feeling strong about this draft class? Or are you saying like these are a little bit more like projects than I was hoping we would land?
In terms of the specific players, I do think I would have liked, certain guys on the board at receiver and offensive tackle. But I think when you look at it, and this is where, being guys on the outside and not knowing what they're thinking on the inside, like, we do have to respect the fact that, they're going to have their preferences at receiver and offensive tackle that we just may not understand. But I think we've done a pretty good job of calling the order of positions in this draft. I mean, I don't want to pat myself on the back, but I called the defensive trenches on round 1. Felix Ndudike-Uzama was a pretty popular pick amongst us at the AP staff. We talked about receiver today as that round 2 pick, right? Needing to go up and get a guy. Well, what did they do? They traded up and get Rashee Rice. And we talked about offensive tackle not necessarily being in that round 2 flavor, but maybe having more value in round 3. Well, what do you know? They take a guy that they feel good about, obviously, in round 3 to play. So I think how it's playing out is kind of how I would have had it play out pretty much. The defensive tackle position is one you can wait on a little bit, especially because of the value of the position. Look, if you get a nose tackle, he can only play on first and second downs at times, and it's not the most valuable position. So I really like how they've attacked the positions in order. I just, there's some players I would have rather had, but that's just me personally, my personal opinion. And obviously, I'm not Brett Veach, so I think as in terms of the positional value, man, I think he's done a really good job of picking and choosing which positions to go for it, which parts of the draft.
So heading into day 3 of the NFL draft, and we'll start with you, Rocky. Like, what are the other positions they filled? They drafted all 3 of the positions that we wanted to see them fill in this draft. So what are the other positions heading into day 3 that you're like, I'd really love to see them come away with something here, or there's pretty good depth still and talent still at this particular position that love to see them come away with a couple of those guys on day 3?
Yeah, I'd like to see him get a wide body space heater that can play at nose tackle like a Keandre Coburn or a Gerard Clark. I would not mind them double dipping at wide receiver and get going for a more faster kind of twitched up weapon guy. Um, or even maybe even just like a downfield threat guy like a Matt Landers, even if there's not a twitched up guy on the board. Um, there's still a couple of tight ends out there that I wouldn't mind seeing them go after. So I think there's like the only must have in day 3 is a nose tackle, I feel like. And then with the rest of the picks, you're kind of free to just go for best available or go for your projects and take home run swings, man. Go for guys with high upside and see what you can get. And so, I mean, it looks like they're doing that a little earlier in the draft than we might have, but hey, here's the thing though, with these picks, it's not like they're just like, oh crap, we're on the clock. Who do we want to take? Their board is hundreds of players long, and they've watched every single game of these guys, graded them, and then had another scout cross grade them for accuracy to have a consensus before they ever even put somebody up on their board. So they know these players inside and out.
And it does seem important to note that, like, it seemed like after night 1 of the draft, where it seemed like the Chiefs were really, really trying to move up in the first round, on day 2, it seems like they really kind of picked their spots. Like, there wasn't a lot of chatter about them looking to move up significantly into the second or third round. It seems like they kind of waited for the board to fall to them and decided when the best value was to move up a couple of spots, which they did in each of those rounds. So it seems like they thought that was the best value move for them in taking those guys in the second and third round. But Caleb, Ron, like, going into day 3 of the NFL draft, what are a couple other positions that you would really like to see them try to go after?
I think now's the time to address the interior defensive line. There's a couple of guys. You got Siaki Ika, you got Keandre Coburn, you got Broderick Martin. The Chiefs actually met with Martin. I think all 3 of those guys, and really even if you want to wait till the late rounds, Gerard Clark would be an interesting name that you can see, and they all fit kind of that mold of big space eater, can play 2 gaps. I know we've been really high on Ika throughout the course of the draft process. They've met with Martin, as I mentioned a second ago. And honestly, I think they could still maybe take a crack at a wide receiver. It's going to be a little bit before they draft, but you still got Tyler Scott and Trey Palmer on the board. So it'd be interesting to see how that plays out. And then, towards the back end, I'm sure we'll get a patented Veach move, and he'll take he'll take a crack at a couple of secondary guys, and who knows, they might be starting big games for the Chiefs down the line.
And Ron, positions you're hoping they could still fill on day 3 of the draft?
Yeah, no, I think Caleb hit it. Interior defensive line, I really think it's the sweet spot now. The top round 4 really is. They don't have that first early round 4 pick now, right? And I do think that's going to affect it to an extent, but I do think you could see them go there. But watch out for running back. I think running back is going to be a position that at some point they're going to want to at least look at hard. I think they have a nice little safety blanket with Jerick McKinnon kind of waiting for them to sign him after the draft, right, if they can't find that guy to replace his role. But watch out for guys like Syracuse's Sean Tucker, Georgia's Kenny McIntosh. There's going to be guys that the Chiefs may value that can, look comfortable as a receiver, but also maybe give you a little bit in pass protection. That's a real thing Jerick McKinnon does. You're not going to be able to get a rookie that's going to come in and do what Jerick McKinnon did as a pass protector, but you can get close. A guy like Kenny McIntosh would make a lot of sense in that sense. So look out for running back. I do think, hey, it's nice to have Jerick McKinnon, but it'd be also nice to have a younger player, kind of more of a guy kind of on the ascent in that position, maybe that you could get a little more out of than you've gotten out of McKinnon the last couple of years.
Yes. Kenny McIntosh all day long. He is the best receiving back in this draft, and you can put him in the slot, and he can run almost a full route tree. He has great hands. You could. Kenny McIntosh is a dollar store Deebo Samuel.
I love it when Rocky gets juiced up about these prospects, and it is important to note they did trade away that early 4th round pick, as Ron mentioned. So it's going to be a while again, unless the Chiefs try to move up. As of right now, they're not slotted to pick again until number 134 in the 4th round of day 3 of the NFL draft. But, 2 days in the books. They got the 3 biggest positions of need on the roster, and now we'll see what they do on day 3, where We saw Brett Veach hit a bunch of home runs on day 3 of the NFL draft last year, and we'll see if he can do it again. But thank you guys so much for hanging out with us. We really appreciate it. We're having so much fun covering the NFL draft for you guys here at Arrowhead Pride. As always, make sure you're locked into arrowheadpride.com. We will have draft evaluations, player profiles, all of that stuff, everything that you need to know about the new Kansas City Chiefs up immediately at arrowheadpride.com. As always, please make sure you subscribe, rate, and review everything that we're doing on the Arrowhead Pride Podcast Network. You can follow Rocky Magana on Twitter at Rocky Magana. I'm Stephen Serda. That's where you can find me. You can follow Ron Kopp at Ron_Kopp. And Caleb, you're at CJ Scoobs, right? Okay.
Yes, sir.
I couldn't find it fast enough, but I thought that was right. I just wanted to double check. But again, appreciate you guys. Day 2 is in the books. We will be back tomorrow for day 3. We'll talk to you then.